Now, Haworth is a brand that's not talked about quite as much as Steelcase and Herman Miller when it comes to office seating, but in all honesty, it probably should be. They've been in operation since 1948, started by G.W. Haworth, headquartered in Holland, Michigan. They are currently one of the largest office furniture manufacturers in the world, operating in over 120 countries and doing over $2 billion in annual sales. They do have some of the highest end office chairs on the market, and so I thought it would be helpful just to go over these chairs, share with you the differences so that you can easily see if one of them might be a good fit for you. There are a few things that I do want to go over before we start getting into the individual chairs that will apply to all of the models, and then I won't have to touch on them for each chair. And that is going to have to do with the policies offered by Haworth when we look at the returns, warranty, and shipping. So if you order any of these chairs, they will ship to you free of charge via ground shipment, making it very easy for you to facilitate the delivery of the chairs, and they all also arrive fully assembled. You just need to wheel the chair out of the box and it's ready to go, so you don't have to spend any time putting the chairs together. You also get a 30-day return policy with all of the chairs. If you decide that you need to return it, just wheel it right back into the box. Haworth will pay for that return shipping and give you a full refund. Each chair comes with a 12-year warranty. This covers people up to 325 pounds, and this is also valid for 24/7 usage. The only exception to this is going to be the fabric on the chair will be covered for only 5 years and not that full 12-year period. So the first chair that we're looking at is going to be the lowest priced chair on our list, and that is going to be the Soji, which starts at $449, and that's actually the price that we have the chair configured here with the options that we chose. Now, this is going to be more of an entry-level chair from Haworth. They do have a couple models that are less expensive, but this is going to be their popular low-price entry-level type of model. It does have a pretty good build. It's not going to be up to the same standards as the next chairs on our list, but it does feel solid, especially for the price point that you're paying. The Soji has a nice adjustment package starting with the synchro tilt mechanism. It gives you that nice, easy, smooth recline function, putting you in a nice ergonomic position, whether you're upright or fully reclined. You also get an upright locking position with a responsive tension control, seat height adjustment, seat depth adjustment, adjustable height lumbar, as well as 4-way adjustable arms. So overall, for $449, you are getting a ton of adjustments with this chair, which is nice to see for that price. Next, we'll take a look at the seat, and honestly, the seat on this chair reminded me very much of the Fern, which is their highest end ergonomic chair currently available in their catalog. So that is a good sign to see on a chair with this price point. It does have nice padding. It's more on the firm side, but I did not find myself bottoming out while using it. The fabric feels high end and it was comfortable to use. The seat is spacious, giving you a lot of ways to sit in the chair. It's not restrictive with a front edge or a frame that keeps you in a position. One thing that I did notice about the chair is that it is lacking the flexibility that we do see in some seats from higher end brands like Herman Miller, Steelcase, and Haworth themselves. So this is going to be more of a rigid seat when we compare this to other models. The backrest on the Soji is going to feature a mesh design, and the mesh does allow you to sink into the back, but it's not going to have that same type of elastic, springy feeling that we see on chairs like the Aeron. Now, one thing that I also noticed about this backrest is that the frame is pretty rigid. It's not going to allow you to flex and move, and if you do try to do that, the frame does become pretty pronounced and it can become uncomfortable. Another thing to think about is the backrest on this chair does not have a very pronounced curve, and the lumbar part of the chair was not very pronounced. It's soft to the point that there were times that I was reclining in the chair and I could feel that it wasn't even making contact with my back. So if you're one of those people that really likes to have a nice, firm, pronounced lumbar support, then I would probably go away from the Soji and look to another chair that we have on our list here. And the final thing that we're going to touch on with the Soji is going to be the armrest package. We already talked about the fact that you do get 4-way adjustability, which is very nice, and all of these adjustments do have nice ranges. The arms do feel pretty solid. Like I said at the beginning, it feels like a well-built chair, but as we get progressively more expensive through the next chairs, we will find that the arms do feel more solid and they do stay in place a little bit better than the Soji arms. The arm caps are soft and they are comfortable, not quite as soft as some of the next chairs on our list, but definitely good arm pads, especially for that $449 price. One thing that I do wish that the arms had, I wish that they were just flipped in the opposite direction. They have this interesting shape to them, and it made it difficult for me to pull fully up to my keyboard, but this shape might be useful for some other applications that I'm not considering. So I would take a look at the arm caps themselves, look at the shape, look at your space and the way that you use your computer and your chair. That'll make it easier for you to decide whether or not that shape will be good for you. The next chair we're going to look at here is going to be the Very chair. Now this is a chair that has a starting price of $719. The way that we have our chair configured here is currently $744 in the Haworth store online. Now, this is going to be a chair that is a step up in quality from the Soji that we just looked at. The first things that we can see with the upgrades is going to be just simply more metal on the chair. We've upgraded to a metal base, also quite a bit more metal on the frame itself, and then some different adjustments on the chair that give you a little bit more value for the money as compared to the Soji. When we look at the adjustment package on the Very, you will get all of the same adjustments that we just saw on the Soji, except for the way that the chair reclines and locks into position. So you get seat height, seat depth adjustment, adjustable height lumbar support, and then you also get tension adjustment with those four-way adjustable arms. Now, the recline function is going to be much different on this chair than the Soji. The Soji has more of a standard synchro tilt mechanism, whereas this chair is going to have a much deeper recline, more similar to a knee tilt mechanism. It actually feels very similar to a Herman Miller recline, like an Embody or an Aeron or a Mira 2, that type of nice, smooth, deep recline function. That's what the Very has, and so if that's what you're looking for on a less expensive model than Herman Miller, then this might be the ticket. The biggest difference in terms of locking functionality is that this chair does not have a fully upright locking position. Instead, it kind of has a hybrid of options. I'll just kind of sit down in the chair and show you here. So when you just use the chair and you put the tab all the way forward upright, that's going to give you just a standard full range of motion. You can go all the way back and all the way forward, and when you're all the way forward, you're just sitting upright in a normal tasking position. If I click the button back one time, it will let me go all the way back, but when I try to come forward, it will lock it right here. It won't let me go all the way forward like I was before, and you have a limited range from about the midpoint all the way back. Now, if I push it down one more time, it's going to lock my backrest right in this midpoint position. I can't move anywhere. So it's this very weird combination of tilt lock plus tilt limiter, and I haven't seen that on any other chairs than the Haworth, and specifically this model, the Very. So definitely something different to look at. If that's enticing for you, I can definitely see why you might lean towards this chair. And the final adjustment that's different when going from the Soji to the Very is that you get independent lumbar depth adjustment. Now, this is a very rare adjustment, seen only a handful of chairs to come through our office, specifically on Haworth chairs and then the Herman Miller Mira. So a very unique adjustment. If you like to have a ton of control over your lumbar, then that should be pretty attractive for you. The seat on the Very is going to be very similar to the seat on the Soji. The biggest difference is going to be a much more pronounced waterfall front edge, but you're still getting a seat that doesn't restrict you in the way that you sit. Very spacious, very wide open without any hard edges. Similar to the Soji, it doesn't offer a ton of flexibility if you want to move around in the seat, but it does have that nice padding that doesn't bottom out over time. More on the firm side, but definitely supportive, just like the Soji. The backrest on the Very is going to be similar to the Soji in design. It's got a similar frame design, similar mesh, and a similar lumbar, but it did feel quite a bit different to actually use the chair, and that is because the mesh on the Very feels quite a bit more loose than the mesh on the Soji, and it allowed me to sink much further into the backrest than the Soji chair. One problem that this introduced is that I could really feel the frame anytime that I reclined back in the chair, and that's because the mesh sinks so far back that you can just feel the edges on the back and your shoulders, and I found that to be pretty uncomfortable, and so I did not like using this chair in a reclined position. One thing that I did notice on this chair, though, because of the looser mesh, is that the lumbar is much more pronounced on the Very than the Soji. So if you liked the Soji design, but did not like hearing that it had a ton of lumbar, good pronounced support, then the Very might be a nice option for you because this does have a much more pronounced system than the Soji does. And the final thing we're going to look at on the Very is going to be the armrest package. And I did find this package to be very similar to that on the Soji with the 4-way adjustment. One thing that I did notice is that the Very does seem to have larger adjustment ranges. I was able to get the arms a bit lower than I was able to get the Soji, which allowed me to slide the arm under my keyboard tray, which I could not do with the Soji chair. One thing that I also like a bit better with these arms compared to the Soji is that they have a little bit more surface area due to the rectangle shape. They are not the softest arms. The next 2 arms on our list will offer a softer experience, but they do have some give to them and they are comfortable for the price that you're paying. Next chair we're taking a look at is going to be the Zody. Now this is a chair that has a starting price of $649. As we've got our chair configured, basically fully loaded, it comes out to $774 currently in Haworth's store online. Now, the Zody has been Haworth's flagship chair for a number of years, basically all the way up until recently when they released the Fern. And in my opinion, this is going to be an upgrade to the Very chair, even though they are similarly priced. The Zody has probably the most metal on any high-end chair that I have seen recently. The base is metal, the armrest frame is metal. There's a ton of metal on the frame overall. And so to those of you that like to have a really solid built metal chair, that can be an attractive feature. We see a lot of chairs switching to plastic components because they provide similar durability. They're less expensive and more lightweight, so they can be a good alternative. But a lot of people still prefer that metal build, and you're getting that with the Zody. The Zody has a great adjustment package, giving you almost all of the adjustments that we just saw on the Very, with the difference being in the way that the tilt lock functions. So you're going to get that seat height, seat depth adjustment, adjustable height lumbar support, independent adjustable depth lumbar, and you also get that tension adjustment with 4-way adjustable arms. And now, similar to the Very, this does have a very unique mechanism in the way that it reclines and locks into position. It is similar to the Very in the way that it feels when you recline, similar to a Herman Miller Aeron or Embody. It does have that nice deep recline, not that standard synchro tilt mechanism like we saw on the Soji, but the locking positions are going to be a bit different. So it basically gives you 2 modes, and then each mode has a locking position. So the first mode is going to be more of an upright angle. You can see that my back is fully upright, but I still have the full range of recline. And it gives me the option to flick this button and it will lock me fully upright here. So those are my 2 options with this mode. I can sit fully upright, or I can unlock it and have the full range of motion. The next option, if you click the front lever back and you recline and try to come forward, it will stop you at more of a midpoint range. So you can see I'm slightly reclined here, and now if I flick the second button back, it will lock me here. But if I unlock it, it will give me the full range back and then stop me up here. So it's basically giving you 2 different zones to recline in, and then an option to lock you in the most forward position of either of those 2 zones. So a very unique design, similar to the Very in that it's the only mechanism that I've seen like this. So if that's attractive for you, then the Zody must be your chair because it's the only one that has it. The next thing we're going to look at is going to be the seat on the Zody. And this is going to be very similar to the Very and the Soji that we've previously looked at. In terms of the shape and the design of the seat, it's not going to have any hard edges or anything at the front that prohibits you from using the chair. You can sit in it in any position you want. It's not restrictive at all. Very spacious design. The biggest difference that I found between the Zody and all of the other Haworth chairs that we've tested, the Fern, the Soji, and the Very, is that the Zody is a noticeably softer seat, and I did not find that this foam bottoms out over time, so it offers a little bit softer seating experience than the other chairs on this list. So if you're one of those people that prefer more of a soft sit, then the Zody is probably going to be a better choice than the other 3 chairs that we're looking at today. The backrest on the Zody is going to be similar to the Soji and the Very that we've looked at. It's got similar mesh and a similar look, but I do think that it is quite a big upgrade from those other 2 chairs just from a pure comfort standpoint. Now, when I used the Soji, I felt like the mesh was a little bit too tight and it prevented me from feeling that lumbar. And when I used the Very, I felt that it was a little bit too loose. It made me feel the chair frame and it really made the lumbar feel pronounced. The Zody, I think, is the happy medium. It's not too loose and it's not too tight. I can sink into the mesh, but I do not feel the frame, and the lumbar does not stick too much into my back, but I can definitely feel it. Another thing that I really like about the backrest on the Zody, especially compared to the previous two chairs that we looked at, is that the plastic on the back is flexible and it is wider than the previous two chairs. So your shoulders are allowed to avoid the plastic just because it's wider, and you're allowed to bend and move and stretch without feeling the plastic because it moves with you and it does not stay rigid like the previous two chairs. So overall, I think the backrest on the Zody is a great design, and in my opinion, it's definitely an upgrade from the previous two chairs. And the final thing we're going to look at on the Zody is going to be the armrest package, starting with the arm caps themselves. Now, I do feel that the arm caps on the Zody are going to be the most comfortable arm caps out of the four chairs that we're looking at today, and that is because of how soft they are. They're definitely the softest of the bunch, even softer than the Fern, and I'm a really big fan of the rounded edges on the entire arm because there's no opportunity for you ever to run into a hard edge, and I found these arms to be the most comfortable arms out of the Haworth chairs we've tested simply because of the arm caps. The ranges on the four-way adjustment are also going to be very generous, just like the Very chair that we just looked at. I was able to get the arms under my keyboard tray. They also go very tall for tall individuals. They have a big swivel range and they can go in and out quite far. So they will be able to accommodate a wide range of people and a wide range of typing and tasking applications. So overall, definitely a great arm package with the Zody. And the final chair that we're looking at today is going to be the Fern chair. Now this is a chair that has a starting price of $849. The way that we've got it configured here, basically fully loaded, puts it at a price point of $1,091. Now this is Haworth's current flagship chair, their new highest end ergonomic chair, kind of dethroning the Zody. But when we look at just the pure build quality, I can't necessarily say that this is a more well-built chair than the Zody, even though it is quite a bit more expensive. You could argue that things like the base, casters, some of the frame components are nicer on the Zody, but this is going to be a higher end chair overall, and that's mainly due to the technology of the chair and the aesthetics of the chair. So this chair has a ton of unique and advanced new technology, especially in the backrest that we'll go over a little bit more coming up. But the design of the chair and the overall look of the chair is what really pushes it to that over $1,000 price point. This is certainly one of the nicest looking chairs on the market, definitely the most modern looking chair from the Haworth lineup, so it's certainly easy to see why this is their most expensive chair. The Fern has a really nice adjustment package, but it is a little bit different than the previous three chairs that we've looked at. It does share some adjustments, those being seat height adjustment, seat depth adjustment, four-way adjustable arms, tension adjustment, and then height adjustable lumbar support. It also shares a very similar recline to the Soji. It doesn't have that deep kind of knee tilt recline like we saw on the Very, the Zody, like the Herman Miller chairs. It's just going to be more of a simple synchro tilt recline. And then some of the differences that we see between the Fern and the previous three chairs, the first is going to be that independent depth adjustable lumbar that we saw on the Very, and the Zody is not available on the Fern, but the Fern does have a couple adjustments that those other chairs don't. The first being independent seat angle adjustment, which allows you to use the chair in more of a forward position, which is nice for heavy tasking and typing. And then you're also going to get a true tilt limiter functionality with the Fern with 5 different positions to choose from, as compared to that kind of hybrid tilt lock, tilt limiter functionality that we saw on the Very and the Zody. Next up, we'll look at the seat, which is going to be very similar in terms of feel and design to the Very's seat. Now, also similar to the Soji, more of a firm sit, but it does have that good foam that doesn't bottom out and keeps you supported. The design itself is very spacious, like all of the other chairs, so it allows for multiple sitting positions. One thing that Haworth tried to incorporate on the Fern, and it's something that they talked about, is incorporating more flexibility at the front of the seat to allow the Fern to move with you while you work. And while I can tell that there's a difference between this chair and the previous 3 Haworth chairs, I will say that it's not very comparable to some of the other high-end chairs like the Embody and the Leap and the Gesture. Those chairs definitely have more movement in the seat than the Fern, so if that's something that you're looking for, then I'd probably steer towards a different brand entirely. The backrest on the Fern is going to be the one thing that is going to be the most different on this chair as compared to the previous 3 Haworth chairs. And this is where all of the technology comes in that we talked about at the beginning of the section. So The back has a 4-layer design, and there was a ton of testing and development that went into this design, and really it's meant to kind of give you a suspended type of feeling that really allows you to move and shift in the chair with the back staying with you. So those of you that really like to move in your chair and really like to have a ton of freedom, this is probably going to be your best bet from the Haworth lineup, because this backrest certainly allows for some of the most movement out of all of the backs that we've tested all of the chairs to come through our doors. Another good thing about this backrest as compared to the previous 3 chairs is that it has a true high back design with an optional headrest, which is not something we see on the other chairs. So if you really need that high back design or you really need a headrest, then the Fern is definitely going to be your go-to in the Haworth lineup. And the last thing that differentiates the Fern's back from the other backs that we've looked at today is going to be the lumbar curve and the lumbar support. The backrest on the Fern has the most pronounced curve out of all of the chairs that we've looked at in this video, and it also has the most pronounced lumbar system. So overall, it is going to provide the most lumbar support and the most curvature in the back out of all of the chairs that we've looked at. If that's an attractive feature for you, then the Fern is definitely going to be a go-to out of the Haworth lineup. And the final thing that we're going to take a look at on the Fern is going to be the armrest package. Now, the arm caps themselves are going to be similar to the Soji and the Very in terms of firmness. They're not going to be quite as soft as the Zody. So if you're looking for the softest arms, I still believe that that's going to be the Zody chair. But they do have a very sleek design and a very modern look as compared to the Zody chair. But one downside to this is that they do have an edge around the outside, which is avoided with that rounded design on the Zody chair. So in terms of just pure comfort with the arm caps themselves, I do think that the Fern is a little bit of an upgrade to the Very and to the Soji, but I do feel that the Zody arm caps are still going to be a little bit more comfortable. Now, when we switch over and look at just the pure adjustability of the arms, I think that the Fern has a pretty big advantage over the previous 3 models. It has 4-way adjustment with huge ranges, but it also has a unique articulating motion that we've seen on other chairs like the Leap and like the Gesture, and this really just allows you to put the arms into a lot more positions, a bigger variety, which can be nice for tasking and typing applications. And that's going to wrap up our list of the best office chairs from Haworth. If you're liking this style of video and want us to cover a brand that we haven't already covered, make sure to let us know in the comments and we'll consider it for our next best of list. If you'd like any more information on the chairs featured here, we'll make sure to link any reviews we've done down in the description. As always, if you've made it this far, give us a like, subscribe, and ding that bell so you don't miss out on our next best of list. Thanks a lot for watching.